Smallest piece is mine. Eat yours slow. The white van stopped again. Hands still. Don't look at it.
Camila, take the big piece.
You always take the little one. I like the little one. Eat. Mia, we don't take.
You didn't take it. I gave it.
You don't have to do that.
I know. That's why I get to.
Judge listens to whoever's stable.
No.
We got nobody left. Pretend you're our father.
Then the van goes away.
In the tea room off the courthouse annex, 4 little girls were dividing a single scone into 4 exact pieces. The oldest did the cutting with the flat edge of a plastic knife, pressing slow so the crumbs would not scatter, because scattered crumbs were waste, and waste was a thing they could no longer afford. Nobody at their table spoke. The littlest watched the knife, the way you watch something you have been promised. A room full of grown people rustled papers and stirred tea and looked straight through them, the way a person looks through a window at rain. Then, past the fogged glass, a white county van pulled into the loading bay and cut its engine, and the oldest girl put her hand flat over the plate, as if to hide what little there was. At the corner table, a man in a delivery company shirt set down his sandwich and stopped chewing. His name was Eli Marsh, and he had 40 minutes of lunch left before the rest of his route. He had come into the annex tea room only because it was warm and the coffee was 30 cents cheaper than the cart on the corner, and because a man who eats alone learns to prefer the places where nobody asks him anything. He unwrapped a turkey club, ate half of it without tasting it, and watched the 4 girls the way you watch weather you can feel coming. They were dressed clean, but wrong for the cold. Their shoes had been polished by a child's hand. He knew children who begged, and these were not those. Begging children make noise, tug sleeves, learn the trick of a wide eye. These 4 had gone the other way entirely. They had folded themselves down into the smallest possible shape. The oldest, maybe 12, sat with her back very straight and her eyes on the door, managing. A serious one beside her held a library book with the spine broken white, reading the same page too long. The third, perhaps 8, did not read, and did not manage, and did not speak. She only watched her own hands, and the littlest, 5 if that, swung her feet under the chair, because feet that small do not yet know how to be afraid. The oldest cut the scone and gave the biggest quarter to the littlest and the smallest quarter to herself. And Eli understood the whole arithmetic of that table in a single second. He had grown up on that arithmetic. He knew the taste of the smallest piece. A woman crossed the room toward the girls with a leather folder pressed to her chest. She wore a gray coat and the particular brisk kindness of a person who has decided in advance that she is doing the right thing. She crouched by the table, and Eli watched the 4 girls go still all at once, like rabbits under a hawk's shadow. The woman said something low. The oldest girl answered in a voice trained flat. "We would rather stay together, ma'am." The woman smiled the smile that does not reach anywhere and said, "I know, sweetheart, but the county has to do what's best for each of you." Then she rose, checked a slim gold watch, and walked back to a table near the window where a younger woman waited with a laptop. Eli looked at his sandwich. It was none of his business. He had a route and a lease and a phone with a cracked screen, and a whole practiced life built around the principle that he did not step forward anymore. He had stepped forward once, hard, with everything he had, and it had not been enough. And he had put that part of himself in a drawer, and not opened the drawer in a long time. He wrapped the second half of his sandwich back in its paper, and told himself to finish his coffee and go. That was when the littlest one climbed down from her chair. She walked to his table on legs that barely cleared the floor, stood at his elbow, and looked at the wrapped half sandwich with a want so nakedly honest it hurt to see. She did not ask. She had clearly been taught not to ask. She just looked. And then she looked up at his face to check whether looking was allowed. The third girl, the silent one, the one who watched her hands, came after her sister the way you follow someone off a ledge. She did not speak either. But she reached out, slow, giving him every chance to say no, and she took the wrapped half from the table. She did not grab it. She lifted it like something that might break, and she peeled the paper back and split the sandwich down the middle and gave half to the littlest before she took a single bite herself. Eli did not move. He had the strange sense that if he moved, if he so much as breathed loud, the moment would understand itself and be ashamed. So he sat still and let a child take food off his table, and he watched a girl who had stopped asking adults for anything decide, just this once, that a stranger in a delivery shirt was safe enough to take from. It was the smallest thing. It undid him more than anything had in 3 years. Mia, the oldest, was there in an instant, low and fierce, pulling both little ones back by the shoulders, her face burning. "I'm so sorry, sir. She knows better. We're not." The word she could not finish was beggars. She got them turned around, got them moving back toward their own table, and the shame on her was so heavy that Eli felt it settle across his own chest like a wet coat. "It's mine to give," he said. His voice came out rougher than he meant. "I bought it. I get to decide where it goes." "You didn't take anything. I gave it." The oldest stopped. She looked at him properly for the first time, weighing him the way a person weighs a coin they suspect is fake. Whatever she saw made her let go of her sister's shoulders. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know," Eli said. "That's why I get to." She sat back down slowly, one careful eye still on him, and the littlest chewed her half sandwich with her whole face, and the serious one lowered her book at last. And Eli learned their names the way you learn anything true, sideways and by accident. The oldest was Camila, the reader was Sophia, the silent one was Mia, the littlest, who swung her feet, they all called Baby, though her real name, Sophia told him gravely, was Anna. 4 sisters, one name that the county was carrying in 4 different folders that morning. "Where's your mother?" Eli asked, and regretted it, because Camila's face closed like a store at night. "She got sick in the winter," Sophia said, before Camila could stop her. Sophia was the one who answered questions. She could not help it. A fact in her mouth wanted out. "In February, and our dad went away a long time before that, and nobody has his number." She said it the way children say the terrible things, plainly, because they have not yet learned that some facts are supposed to be dressed up first. "So now a lady decides where we live, and she wants us to live in different houses because there isn't one house that will take all 4. The van in the loading bay was still there. Eli could see the driver leaning against the door, unhurried, drinking from a paper cup, a man doing an ordinary job. And somewhere in the annex above their heads, at 2 o'clock, a hearing was going to happen that would tell 4 sisters they were now 4 separate children. Camila reached into the pocket of her coat and took out a folded piece of paper, worn soft as cloth from being folded and unfolded. She smoothed it on the table and did not quite hand it over. "The lady said the judge listens to what's stable," she said. "She said if there was a grown-up if there was somebody who could show up and say they'd keep us together, that it would count." She looked at her own hands now, the way Mia did, and Eli saw exactly where Mia had learned it. "We don't have anybody like that." "We had an idea," Sophia said. "Sophia," Camila warned. "We had an idea," Sophia pressed on, because a fact wanted out, that maybe somebody could pretend. "Just for 1 hour. Just stand up and say the thing, and then we could stay in one place while they figured out the rest." She looked at Eli with the ferocious hope of a child who has done the math and found only one variable left unsolved. "You were nice to Mia, and Mia doesn't like anybody." "Pretend you're our father," Anna said suddenly, around a mouthful of sandwich. It was the first full sentence Eli had heard the littlest one say. Just pretend. So the van goes away. The tea room went on rustling and stirring around them, indifferent, and Eli sat with those 4 words landing in him one at a time. Pretend you're our father. He was 38 years old. He delivered packages and slept badly, and had not signed his own full name to anything that mattered in 3 years. He looked at Camila's soft-folded paper and felt the drawer he had nailed shut begin, very slightly, to slide. "That's not how it works," he said gently, and watched the hope go out of Anna's face, and hated himself for it. "A judge would know in about a minute that I'd never met you before today. And then it would be worse. They'd think somebody put you up to it. Somebody could get in real trouble. He was thinking, though he did not say it, of the word standing, of who has the right to speak in a room like the one upstairs, of the difference between pretending and being allowed. Then it doesn't matter, Camila said, and folded the paper back along its worn creases. It's fine. We knew it was a dumb idea. Thank you for the sandwich. She said it with a dignity that a grown woman twice her age could not have managed, and she began to gather her sister's coats, and the terrible, ordinary machinery of the day ground on toward 2 o'clock. Eli should have let it. Even now he could have picked up his coffee and walked out into the cold and driven his route, and never known how the afternoon ended. That is the honest shape of the moment. Nobody was making him do anything. That is what these stories always leave out, that the man who steps forward is never forced. He chooses it, while every part of his sensible life is telling him to sit back down. He asked one question instead. "The paper," he said. "The one in your pocket. Can I see it?" Camila hesitated. Then she gave it to him. Not because she trusted him, he thought, but because she had run out of people who would even look. It was a photocopy of a county filing, a case caption, a placement recommendation with the 4 girls' names listed one under the other, and a proposed order beside each name. Different addresses, different towns, 2 of them. He read it the way he used to read things, fast and cold, his eyes going straight to the corner where the small print lives. And in the corner, where the small print lives, something old and shut inside him opened its eyes. Before he could speak, the woman in the gray coat was back, her gold watch catching the light. "Girls, it's time. We should go up." She noticed Eli holding the paper and her face did a small, professional recalculation. "I'm sorry. Are you family?" "No," Eli said. "Then I'll take that." She held out her hand for the filing. Her voice stayed kind, and her eyes did not. "I'm the guardian appointee, Mr. Marsh, Miss Vantry. These are my wards until the court says otherwise, and I really do have their best interests at the center of everything I do." She said the sentence like a thing she had said many times, smooth as a stone in a river. "The most stable outcome available is placement, even if it means separate homes. I know it looks hard. In a year, they'll be settled. Children are resilient." She said resilient, the way people say it, when they need a child to carry the weight an adult could not. Eli handed the paper back. But he had already read the corner. "The recommendations under the emergency provision," he said, keeping his voice mild, a man making conversation. "The expedited one. That's for when there's immediate risk in the current placement. Is there immediate risk?" Miss Vantry paused. "Just for a breath. It's the appropriate track given the timeline." "It's the fast track," Eli said, "the one that skips the sibling preference review, because there isn't time for it. There's time for it. The hearing's not till 2. The review's a form and a phone call." He was not raising his voice. That was the thing that made her look at him harder, that a delivery driver in a company shirt was saying the words in the right order. "I don't believe I asked for your opinion," Miss Vantry said, and the kindness in her voice had gone thin as paper. "Girls, now." She turned, expecting them to follow, expecting the young woman with the laptop by the window to fall in behind her, expecting the whole day to keep moving the direction she had pointed it. Eli did not follow Miss Vantry. He sat back down, and to understand why his hands were not quite steady, you have to know about Danny. Danny was his younger brother, the smart one, the one the teachers wrote notes home about. When their mother worked 2 jobs and the arithmetic of their own table came down to smallest and largest pieces, it was Eli, older by 4 years, who took the smallest and told Danny to eat. Danny got into a good school on the strength of a scholarship, and a filing a legal aid clinic did for them for free. A stranger, a young lawyer nobody had hired, who kept 2 brothers in one apartment when the county wanted to move Danny to a group placement across the state. Eli never forgot the man's name. He built the rest of his life on the memory of it. He went to law school for Danny, or maybe because of Danny, or maybe just to become the stranger who does the filing for free. He passed the bar the same spring Danny got sick. By the fall, Danny was gone, the thing inside him faster than any court, faster than any brother, and Eli found he could not walk into a courtroom without hearing his own footsteps echo in a place that should have had Danny in it too. So he never spent the thing he had earned. He put the license in a drawer and got a job that let him move all day and think about nothing. And he told himself that was mercy and not cowardice, and most days he half believed it. 4 little girls, dividing a scone, had brought all of it back up into his throat, the smallest piece. The stranger who files for free. The county van in the loading bay, engine cooling, waiting to take somebody's brothers and sisters to different towns. He stood up. He walked to the window table, where the young woman sat behind the laptop, the one who had said nothing all morning, whose name, he would learn in a few minutes, was Maya, and who was the newest person on Miss Vantry's staff. He said, quietly, so the girls would not hear. Before you file that recommendation, has anyone signed the sibling preference waiver? Because separating a SIB group over their stated preference on the emergency track needs a waiver on the record, and if it's not there when the judge asks, the person who filed it is the one who answers for it. Not the county, the person. Maya's hands stopped on the keyboard. Miss Vantry was there fast. Maya, close the laptop. We're going up. Mr. Marsh, I'll thank you to stop practicing law in a tea room without a license. She said it as a dismissal, a way to make him small, and it was very nearly the exact wrong thing to say, because it went straight past Eli's shame and struck the one nerve he had left alive. You're right that a man needs standing to speak in that room, Eli said. You're right that I'm nobody to these girls. I met them an hour ago. He looked at the 4 of them, huddled by the door in their polished shoes. But you filed under a provision that requires an immediate risk finding, and there isn't one. And the waiver that would cover the split isn't in that folder, is it? I watched you check the folder twice. He turned to Maya. Is it in there? Maya, Miss Vantry said, low. Close the laptop and hand me the folder. That is a direct instruction. For a long moment, Maya did not move. She was young, younger than Eli had thought, maybe 2 years out of school. The kind of new where you still believe the rules are for protecting people. She looked at the folder in Miss Vantry's hands. She looked at the 4 girls. She looked at Anna, who had swung her feet all morning, and who was not swinging them now. There's no waiver in the file, Maya said. Her voice shook and held. I flagged it this morning. I put a note in the system. You told me to leave it, she swallowed. I'm not going to hand you the folder. I'm sorry, I won't. The tea room, which had rustled and stirred all morning, as if none of this were happening, went quiet in a widening ring, the way water goes still when you lift the spoon. People at other tables were watching now. The community that had looked through 4 girls all morning had finally found something it could not look through. A young clerk refusing an order, and a man in a delivery shirt standing very straight, and a woman in a gray coat with a folder she suddenly did not want opened. Miss Vantry's face went through several weathers. You understand, she said to Maya in the flat voice of someone naming a consequence, that this is your position you're spending, on a stranger's guess. He didn't guess, Maya said. He read it right. And she turned the laptop around on the table so the screen faced out, so Eli and the whole quiet room could see the case file open on it. The placement recommendation, the empty field where a waiver should have been logged, and, because Maya had done her job that morning even when she was told to stop, a linked history of the case, the prior filings, everything the county had on 4 sisters going back years. Eli looked at the screen, and near the bottom of the case history, under a heading for prior representation, was a document from years back, a pro bono filing entered when the girl's late mother had first come into contact with the county, long before this. An emergency motion to keep a young family intact during an eviction. He had forgotten it entirely. He did that work for a season after the bar, before Danny got sick, a handful of free filings out of a legal aid clinic, faces he never followed up on. He had signed his name to it, because signing his name to it was the whole point. Open that one, Eli said. His voice had changed. Maya heard it change and clicked the document, and it filled the screen. A scanned motion with a signature block at the foot of it, and there in the black type was a name. Miss Vantry read it before she could stop herself. out of the reflex of a person who reads every document in front of her. "Elijah Marsh," she said, and then heard it, and looked up. Maya read it too, out loud, slow, into the quiet room, because somebody had to be the one to say it, and it was never going to be him. Elijah Marsh, attorney of record, admitted to the bar. She looked from the screen to the man in the delivery shirt. "It's you. You represented their family. 6 years ago. You kept them in their apartment." She said it the way you say a thing that rearranges the furniture of the day. "You're not nobody to these girls. You're the last lawyer who ever fought for them." Camila made a small sound by the door. Sophia's book slid off her lap and she did not pick it up. And Mia, the silent one, the one who watched her hands, the one who had stopped asking adults for anything, Mia looked up at Eli's face with an expression he would carry the rest of his life. "I don't remember your mother's name," Eli said. And it was the truth, and it cost him. "I filed a lot of them that year, and then I stopped filing anything at all, for reasons that are mine. I'm sorry I don't remember her, but that's my signature. Which means I appeared in this matter once. Which means I'm not a stranger practicing law in a tea room." He turned to Miss Vantry, and there was nothing unkind in his face, which was somehow worse for her than if there had been. "It means I have a basis to make a motion. And I'm making one. I'm moving to stay the placement until the sibling preference review is done. On the record, at 2 o'clock, in front of the judge." Miss Vantry set the folder down on the window table very carefully, as though it had become hot. "You'll make me look," she said, and stopped. And Eli saw something move behind her professional face, something that had perhaps once been a reason she took this job in the first place. "You'll make me look like a woman who separates children to make a deadline." "No," Eli said. "I'll make the record say what happened. What it looks like is up to what you do next." He said it without triumph. He had no appetite for her humiliation. He had watched his own brother be a name in a county file, and he could not enjoy making anyone else into one, not even her. They went up to the hearing, all of them, at 2 o'clock. And here is where I have to tell you the truth, because the easy version of this story would have the judge smile and bang a gavel and send 4 sisters home in one car. It did not go like that, not at first. The judge was a tired man near the end of a long docket, and he did not care for surprises. When Eli rose and stated his appearance, the judge looked at the delivery shirt over the collar, and his mouth thinned. "You're telling me you're counsel," he said. "Where's your card, Mr. Marsh?" Eli had no card. He had a license number recited from memory, and a clerk in the annex confirming it on a screen, and a 6-year-old filing with his signature on it. The judge weighed all of that against a man who smelled faintly of a delivery van. For a long, terrible minute, the whole thing hung by a thread, thinner than any of them could stand. Then Miss Vantry stood up. Eli had braced for her to fight. The deadline was hers. The recommendation was hers. Her whole month of work pointed one direction. Instead, she said, in a voice that had gone quiet and steady, "Your Honor, the county withdraws the emergency track. The sibling preference review was not completed. That's my error, and I'm putting it on the record so it's mine and not my staff's." She did not look at Eli. She looked at the 4 girls. "The children have stated a preference to remain together. It should have been the first thing in the file. It was the last." But the judge was not finished, and this is the wrinkle that nearly took everything, because a review completed is not a home found. "Fine," he said. "The splits stayed, but I've got no placement in this county that takes 4. If nobody comes forward with something real by the next hearing, I'm right back where she started, and then I have to split them anyway, and we'll all have wasted an afternoon feeling good about ourselves." He looked at Eli. "You want them together, counsel? Then somebody has to actually keep them together. Stayed is not saved. Who's the home?" The room was silent. Camila's hand found Anna's. Sophia had gone white. And Eli understood that he had bought them a stay and nothing more. That the van in the loading bay could still come back next week with the same engine and the same patient driver. That winning the point was not the same as winning the children a place to be. He thought of Danny. He thought of the drawer he had kept nailed shut for 3 years, and the small, clean apartment he lived alone in, and the whole careful life he had built around never stepping forward again. "I'll do the work to find them a home that takes 4, he said. "Pro bono. I'll do the filings, the appeals, the search, all of it, myself. And until there is one." He stopped, and the words he said next were the ones that finished breaking the drawer open, because they were the words he had refused to spend on himself for 3 years. "Until there is one, I'll take emergency kinship placement myself, on the basis of my prior appearance and my standing in this matter, pending full assessment. All for one address, starting today." Miss Vantry, of all people, spoke into the judge's hesitation. "The county doesn't oppose an emergency kinship placement pending assessment," she said. "He's fit. I'll say so in writing." And she wrote it, right there, in the folder that should have carried a waiver, and the pen she used did not double-click when she pressed it. And later, Eli would not be able to say why he remembered that small, dry sound of a pen that worked the first time, except that it was the sound of a door that had been closing all day finally deciding to open instead. The judge signed the stay and the emergency placement, and told Eli that Stade was still not saved, and he would see them all again in 30 days, and to have something real by then. Then he called the next case, and it was over. The enormous, ordinary thing, the rearranging of 4 lives, finished in the time it takes to sign 2 pages. Let me stop here a moment, in this small quiet after the pen. If a story like this one has ever put a hand on your chest and made it ache, that is the reason I make them. If it is doing that now, stay with me to the end, and if you would, subscribe so the next one can find you too. Now, back to the corridor, where 4 girls were still learning that the afternoon had ended a different way than it began. Out in the corridor, Maya was gathering her things, and she would be looking for a new job by the end of the month, and she knew it, and she did not seem sorry. Eli stopped in front of her. "You refused a direct order over a form nobody would have caught," he said. "Why?" Maya thought about it honestly. "Because you asked if it was in the file," she said, "and I'd known all morning that it wasn't. And I'd told myself it wasn't my job to make it my problem, and then a man who had nothing to gain made it his problem in about 4 seconds. She looked at the girls. "I didn't want to be the person who could have said something and didn't. I've been that person before. It doesn't get easier the second time." The white county van pulled out of the loading bay empty and turned into traffic and was gone. And none of the 4 girls watched it go, because they had already stopped being afraid of it, which is a different and better thing than being brave. They walked out into the cold afternoon together, the 5 of them, and there was the immediate, ridiculous problem of a man who owned nothing, suddenly responsible for feeding 4 children by supper. His car held 2. Camila did the math out loud without being asked. The 2 little ones in back, Sophia on Camila's lap, seatbelt across both. It was only 6 blocks. Eli said that was not legal, and Camila said neither was starving, and looked at him steady until he laughed, the first time he had laughed in front of them, and it startled all 4 of them into looking at him like he was a thing that might be all right. The store was the bright kind that hums, and Eli pushed a cart down the first aisle and felt the old arithmetic rise in him. The counting, the putting things back. He caught himself doing it, reaching for the smaller loaf, the cheaper eggs, and then he stopped in the middle of the aisle and made himself do a thing that hurt more than any of it. He told them to get what they wanted. Camila froze with her hand on a box. Sophia asked, very quietly, if that meant one thing each or one thing to share, because she needed to know the rule before she could want anything, and the fact that an 8-year-old asked for the rule first put a crack straight through the middle of him. "No rule," Eli said, and had to say it twice because the first time it came out wrong. "You each pick, you each get. If it's too much, I'll tell you, but I won't tell you it's too much just because it's yours." Mia, who had said nothing since the tea room, walked the length of the cereal aisle very slowly, touching boxes, and finally took one down. Not the biggest, not the brightest. A plain one, the cheapest, because even now she was trying to be the smallest piece, and held it out to him to ask permission. Eli crouched down. He put the plain box back on the shelf himself and handed her the one she had looked at longest, the one with too much color and too much sugar, and said, "This is the one you wanted. I saw." Mia held it against her chest, with both arms all the way to the register, and would not let him bag it. His apartment was one bedroom and a couch and a window that looked at a brick wall, and he saw it, for the first time in 3 years, through the eyes of people who needed it to be enough. It was not enough. It was going to have to be. Camila took charge of the bags because taking charge of things was the only way she knew how to be safe. And Sophia found the one shelf of books and sat down in front of it like a person kneeling. And Anna fell asleep sitting up on the couch, before the water for the pasta had even boiled, one shoe off, and Eli covered her with his own coat, because he owned no blanket that was not already on his bed. They ate at a table meant for 2, elbows touching, a pot in the middle. And there was too much food, and nobody hid any of it in a pocket for later, though Eli saw Camila start to, and then stop herself, and put the roll back on her own plate, and eat it in front of everyone like it was allowed, which it was, which it had just become. When the pot was scraped, Sophia looked at the small heap that was left, and did the thing children do, the counting of who got how much, and then she looked up, confused, because for the first time in a long time the count did not matter. There had been enough. Nobody had gotten the smallest piece. The 30 days did not go the way the courtroom made it sound either, because finding a permanent home that would take 4 is not a montage. It is phone calls that end in no. Eli filed everything he had promised and more, learned the county's whole system from the inside of a case he was now living, and twice he thought he had it. The second time was the one that nearly broke him. A licensed family 2 counties over, room for 4, willing, warm on the phone, and then, on the home visit, the quiet correction. They had room for 4, but not for 4 at once. They had meant they would take the 2 little ones and help place the older 2 nearby. Camila heard it through the doorway before Eli could stop her, and she did not cry. She just went very still and said, "It's fine. We understand. Thank you for having us," in that trained, flat voice, already folding her sister's coats. Eli drove them home and did not speak the whole way because he did not trust what would come out, and somewhere on the highway he understood that he had stopped looking for a home that would take them and started being one. He filed for permanent kinship guardianship the next morning. He used his own name at the top of the motion, all of it, Elijah Marsh, the name he had not signed to anything that mattered in 3 years, and his hand was steady, and the drawer where the license had sat did not so much close behind him as fall off its hinges entirely. At the assessment hearing where the placement was made permanent and 4 sisters stayed under one roof for good, it was Maya who testified. Maya, who had found new work by then, and who came back on her own day to stand in the box. The judge asked her, for the record, to describe how a delivery driver came to represent the girls, and Maya said he helped them when he had nothing to gain. He didn't know who those children were. He'd forgotten his own signature on their file. There was nothing in it for him. He just couldn't watch it happen. She paused. That's the only kind of help I've ever seen that was actually worth anything. The kind where there's nothing in it for you. Eli did not correct her, because you do not correct the truth. But she was wrong about one thing, and it was the one thing he could not have said in a room with a record in it. There had been something in it for him after all. He had spent, at last, the chance his brother never got, not on himself, the way he never could, but on 4 girls dividing a scone into 4 exact pieces in a warm room where nobody would look at them. Danny would have understood that. Danny would have said it was about time. They grew up in his small apartment that grew less small the more of them it held, and the drawer where he had kept his license nailed shut stayed open after that, because there were always more filings to do for people who could not pay. Faces he followed up on now, everyone. And on the nights when the old grief came up in his throat, one of them would usually appear in the kitchen doorway and ask him for a glass of water, or a signature on a school form, or nothing at all really, just to ask, because asking had become a thing they were allowed to do again. The first of those nights was that very first one, after the pasta, after Anna had been carried to the bed, and the older 3 had been arranged on couch cushions on the floor. Mia came to find him at the sink. She tugged his sleeve. The first time she had reached for an adult on purpose in longer than her sisters could remember. and he crouched down to her level on the kitchen tile. She looked at him a long moment, deciding, the way she had decided about the half sandwich, and then she asked him a small, enormous 4-word question, the first thing she had asked any grown person for in months. "Can I have water?" Eli had to look away for a second before he could answer, out the black window at the brick wall, at nothing, so she would not see what her asking did to him. "Yeah," he said, when he could. "You can have anything you can ask for. That's the deal now. You ask, and I go find it. That's my whole job." And Mia, who had watched her own hands all morning because it was safer than watching the faces of adults, took the cup in both hands and drank the whole thing, and each time after that, for years, when one of them came asking in the dark, it put him back together in the exact place he had come apart. These stories are made with love. If this one stayed with you, subscribe to the channel so the next one can find you too. That is all I ask.